I sat down with my father, Joe Ackels, an attorney in Dallas, Texas, and we discussed prayer and the impact it had on his life.
The time that I would say I was most deeply affected by prayer was at the funerals during the deaths of my mother and father. Both of those were very difficult times, as anyone might imagine. But you know they're gone, and you believe they're somewhere else, and so that really calls into question your faith and what you truly believe. So you pray about it, and there were some unusual events during those deaths that I believe prayer had an impact that has affected me profoundly. I think that's one of your other questions.
Well, I'll give you some examples because I was. There were some things that happened surrounding my father's death that I couldn't believe. I'll tell you the story because it's a significant event in my life. He was on his deathbed at his home, in his bed, surrounded by his 10 children and their families. And he was, in hospice care, and so he was pretty much out of it, but he was taking no medication, so he would, and the doctors had told us it was inevitable, death was coming. So there would be a period when he would wake up and open his eyes really wide, real wide, as wide as he could open them, and he would roll over on his side, and he was reaching with both hands toward the side of the bed, toward what we thought was the clock or the dresser. And we all come running, what can we do? What do you need? What can we get for you? And he didn't say anything. And he was reaching with all his might. He was struggling to get something, and we couldn't figure out what it was. And this would go on, and then he would relax, go back to basically asleep. So this happened 5 or 6 times over the course of a 2-day period, and each time we thought this was the end. None of those were the end. And so that ended, and we thought it was odd. We didn't know what it was. We were wrestling with that one, and my brother, my dad had asked my brother to speak at his funeral, my brother George, and that was unusual because notoriously different other brothers would speak at these events, these sad events, but George was never one. And so George got up at his funeral and said, I didn't know what my father wanted me to say, because he picked me to speak at his funeral, and I didn't know what he wanted me to say. Why did he pick me? There were other brothers who were lawyers and who probably could be more eloquent when speaking, but he says, so I went to the Bible and started looking for something to inspire me, and he says, I found this passage. It's Daniel chapter 10 in the book of Daniel, and he said, most of y'all, the people at the funeral, won't know this, but my brothers and sisters will understand. It'll make clear sense to what I'm saying. And my father was a great devotee to St. Michael the Archangel. And in fact, he saw St. Michael the Archangel 2 or 3 times in his life during big crisis events. One was a hurricane, and he physically saw St. Michael. So he was devoted to St. Michael. And so my brother starts reading Daniel chapter 10. And it says, my eyes are as wide as saucers. They all surround me and love me, but don't know what I'm looking at, don't know what I'm reaching for. I'm reaching for the sword of St. Michael. And I heard that, and I had goosebumps, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I just got chills.
I couldn't believe it. And there were 3 or 4 things. I'd have to go back and read Daniel chapter 10. 3 or 4 things in Daniel that also happened that we saw that matched right in tune with this chapter. So that was pretty powerful to me. But then I went back to the office, and my dad had written a lot of memoirs. And one of them he had, I was going through them after his funeral, like the next day. This book of his memoirs was on his desk. And one of his memoirs was Daniel chapter 10.
Okay. Thank you, Dad.
You're welcome.